Hello folks, hope you're all well. As I mentioned yesterday, we got our EHCP draft through from the local authority. It's not as big as I expected. I'm checking for logos this time before I start waving it around on camera. As you might have seen in yesterday's video, I'd waved around how red the report was and then realised it had the school logo at the top of every page. So I tried blurring it and making it follow around the screen, but it just ended up being a bit of a mess, so I just cut the snip out entirely. But yeah, it's a bit weird getting this through after so much time and thinking it literally holds all of the power over kind of what happens next and, you know, says what he needs and that kind of thing. Just to give a bit of background for anyone who hasn't really followed this all the way through religiously, which is most people, I imagine, because let's face it, you know, it's a long and sometimes not that entertaining situation. Not that anyone wants to be entertained by this kind of thing, but I know that someone in Ollie's class is looking to go through a similar stage, and they asked us how long it took. And officially, it's a 20-week process. I think officially we're in week 17 or 18 of that, and we've got the draft in hand. But sort of when you go back to, well, when you go back to the very first thing, it was around this time last year that they'd finally got some sort of psychologist into school to say, you know, what's happening here? This child gets a lot of red slips. This child's having a lot of difficulties in class. The teacher's kind of at her wit's end with it all. What's going on? They reviewed. The case started building from there. Because of lots of advice from people like yourselves and my friends and family who are into, you know, this kind of thing, everyone said, get an EHCP. It's the answer. It's what you want. I'm just going to tilt this slightly. So we did, and here we are. So I would say it's taken a year of perseverance, but it's also been 2 years of school. You know, he's going into year two in September with this in place. Now, Ollie's diagnosis isn't official yet. Ollie doesn't have a autism diagnosis. It's very, 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 very likely he's autistic. The doctor has a bit of an obsession with ADHD and keeps trying to find ways to put it into it, which I'm not a doctor, so I'm not saying she's wrong, but when she asked us a lot of the questions, we were like, well, that doesn't really add up. And I'm not against it being in there as well. It just, she would say, oh, does he have trouble focusing? Look at him now, he's not focusing on this conversation. That's because he's really anxious. If I give him a book to read, he'll sit and he'll focus, or Claire will read him a book and he'll focus, or he'll focus on a game, or he'll focus on TV, or you know, his attention span isn't an issue. It's just, if he's uncomfortable with situations, he doesn't really settle down. He can sit in class, and I know it's not just about that, but anyway, this talks a lot about how it's undiagnosed. They say that his needs are social, emotional and mental health. He's got mild speech, sound delay, phonological delay, difficulties in behaviour and anger issues, so regulating his emotions and that kind of thing. That is basically the long and short of what it covers. It asks people who are important to him. I think some of this shows how he is, and how, when you read it, knowing him, I feel like that's some of his autistic traits coming out, because it's got people who are important to him, and it lists 2 cousins that he's met once and barely. Like, he played with them a little bit at a family event, and he's listed them as people who are important to him, which is lovely, because I know he knows they're in his family circle. But it's one of those things where I don't know, like, I probably wouldn't think to put my cousins in my first port of call list at this age, let alone that age. And it depends on the cousin, obviously, but it was a little bit like he has trouble putting people in different brackets depending on how important they are to him and that kind of thing. And that was just interesting to read. Now, they did a write-up about him. I'm not going to go through every single page because I think that would be a bit too much. But the thing that I opened this, so basically I mentioned, I was told on Friday that I'd got this coming through. I spent all day worrying about it not coming through and thinking I'd have to chase it up. And then it came through at something like 20 to 5 and I finished work at 4:45. So I opened it and flicked through it quickly and almost cried immediately, because it says here things that Oliver filled in, and he put, I'm good at drawing, outside school he likes being funny and playing on the Xbox, things he finds tricky, he says sometimes he wets himself, doesn't like it, finds maths tricky, which I thought was an odd one for him because he's good at maths. But what made me sad was he put, I would like to be, and he's put a normal person, which really made me feel sad, because nobody's normal. You know, there is no normal. Don't be like that, bless you. No, I don't know where that's come from. And a normal daddy, which I thought was cute. He wants to be a daddy. But no, I read that and I felt a little bit tearful and thought, oh, this is going to be a hard read. But to be fair, the rest of it's pretty much fine. The rest of it's okay. It was just that one little bit. I need to have a chat with him about the fact that he's as normal as everybody else. We're all different, and that is that. And he's not wrong for being different to anyone else. And I need to really, really, really make that clear to him. They cover a lot of his interests. They cover his aspirations, which he couldn't really think of past primary school, which is fair enough. He's 6. It says that he couldn't really think beyond that, but generally speaking, he wants to stay at his current school with his friends. He lists some friends in the other page. When he's older, he wants to make Pokemon come to life and be a scientist. I thought to myself, do you know what? I might try and encourage him down programming or something like that with that kind of attitude. We answered questions about what we'd like. They asked what we expect from him. We kind of said, by adulthood, as long as he's doing what makes him happy, we're happy. The rest of it, we were like, we want him to do as much as he can at school. We want him to be mainstream school if we can. They've obviously tried to write that with that in mind, and generally cover that off. So I think I mentioned in the last video, but in case I didn't hear, they basically said that Oliver's needs are significant, which I guess means that they need to do a lot of work to keep him in mainstream and keep him supported. They did this big list of things that he has problems with. They listed out what they see as his learning difficulties, like his speech, his processing, his he gets upset if he can't complete a challenging tasks. Some of the things is behind him, like reading and writing, that he just doesn't like writing. We're talking about getting an occupational therapist to look at some of the challenges with things like writing, because he seems to physically hate doing them, and we don't know whether it's just a discomfort thing, whether it's a confidence thing or what, but someone suggested an OT, and we thought, well, why not? If it can get him writing, and then great. They talk a lot about anxiety, routines. It's interesting they didn't really mention, they do mention in here that he's undergoing a diagnosis for autism, and it's very likely that'll be the case. But they've written a lot of stuff about struggles to manage routine and transition changes. Lots of things in here that, being blunt and honest about realising that it's rude. The amount of times he's told me I've got bad breath because I've drunk coffee and things like that recently, for example, is very common. Needs to be in control. They say he's quite attention seeking. Has trouble processing his sensory needs and that kind of thing. So they covered a lot of his story, a lot of his situation. They've been quite thorough. I'm very happy with that, because that means they've included they put references and the reference numbers against it. It seems like they've included everything that we gave them. There was a lot of people, but they did a big list at the start of all the people that have been involved. I think it's at the start, it might actually be coming up. But generally speaking, it was like so many people were involved in getting us to this point, and I think, I commend the school on the fact that they put a lot of effort into getting as many outside sources in as they could to support our bid. I know some of you have said you're having trouble getting the support from the school to kick it off for whatever reason, and that's frustrating, because if they agree, then they can do a lot of work to help you get people involved. They can do a lot to pull in the different teams they need to get in. In Lincolnshire, we have Liaison, who were willing to go and kind of kick a few people up the backside if I needed them to. I don't know whether every area has a Liaison, but it's worth finding out what your equivalent is where you live, because they told us, for example, that if school were difficult, we could start the EHCP process. We were told if we applied for it and they rejected our application, then we could appeal that, and appeals usually win outright on the basis of if a child is undergoing a diagnosis for something like autism, ADHD, or just generally any disability, because it's not just for those things. So if you were thinking, I'm certain he needs one or she needs one, and she needs extra support and she's not getting what she needs, and then they say no, the school are right, you can appeal that, and then they have to put one together. They have to at least write and come in and think about it and look at it. Now, it might be that they look at it and they say, there's very mild things that your child needs, and at that point they'll write them down. And what I've seen here is there's an education's outcome page. So it sort of said he has no major health needs other than the fact that he's got a phonological delay and behaviour issues and the autism. But they then talk through education outcomes and say that by the end of certain key points in his development, they want him to be able to do this, and this is how they expect it to be done. So they're saying that by the end of key stage 1, you have to forgive me for reading while I sit. I prefer to look at the camera while I'm talking. But they want him to be able to sort of socially interact with kind hands and feet, kind words, listen when others are speaking. To get him to that point, they want to create a positive book that talks about the good things that have happened instead of the bad things to help with self-esteem. Give him time to communicate. Adults and peer role models need to give him guidance. They want an adult to manage the book and to review it regularly. That's a very basic one. They want to encourage him to be politely with his peers, do lots of social stories and stuff they're kind of already doing, to be honest, but to regularly go through social skill sessions, have a mentor in to do that. They're saying that by the end of the next key stage as well, they need him to be secure with sounds, be able to read and write 100 high frequency words. They're saying that he needs to have a key worker, a key adult to prompt him to start tasks, refocus him on tasks, help him with issues, help motivate him, give him key adult time to prompt him at the start, help develop his independent learning skills. Basically, it sounds like I think the school will already need a one-to-one help all the time, and they're saying that he needs a key adult, which I guess is one step below that, if that's my correct understanding. In that a key adult could have 4 children that they prompt and they help and they go over to, and it almost, in a way, there will be times when he gets frustrated that they're not there and then there for him, but that's what he needs. He needs that kind of, they're not there, oh, I'm really frustrated, and then he learns to cope with that. I think there was a worry for me that if he always had somebody there to just do everything that he needed and help him all the time, he'd never go out of his comfort zone, he'd never grow from that. So it's interesting to see that that's what we're getting. Someone to just kind of get him through that. It says they're going to review, I don't know what in line with the code of practice means, but they're saying that that's what he needs to have. I'm just trying to see where I am. This is a lot of pages. It's about 28 pages long. I'm quite far. I'm on 17 of 28 at the moment, so some of them are blank. So don't worry, I'm not going to waffle on too long. Hopefully, this is interesting and helpful to some of you. It's talking about teaching him to understand his emotions and feelings, which I know that developmentally he can get to that point where he'll be able to understand, and it might be a bit different and a bit slower for him to get to, but they want to coach him through knowing how he feels. If he has kind of problems where I remember reading in here that if there's a situation where he's been particularly upset or rude or had trouble with someone or something like that, they're saying that they would sit and sort of put a cartoon up of what happened, draw through it all, talk about what the different people involved in the story might have been thinking, how they acted, what their motivations and feelings were like, get him to think about it and just suggest ideas and things. And then it does mention something that I'm hoping the school take note of, that once it's done, just rip it up and throw it away, just get rid of it. Don't hang on to it and hammer him with it 6 months down the line, because that was something that happened last year, it happened a little bit this year. They don't want it to be lingering over him, and it does play on his mind if it keeps coming up. So I'm keen for that to be followed, so I'm just trying to find my place. They're talking a lot about the stranger danger and things like that, which is definitely something that we've worried about. Better awareness of danger and how to keep himself safe, that's the one. So generally they want to have support 10 minutes per week and in small groups for 15 minutes per week, paired with an adult, talking through stranger danger, keeping them okay. They talk about having a safe space, sensory equipment, adult to monitor sensory breaks, use of ear defenders, which we know, use of objects, suggested a weighted snake, which I guess is something you wrap around yourself, somewhere for him to go, which he already has, movement breaks, outdoor physical activity, sensory circuits, which he already has. They suggest a sensory diet, which I'm not particularly familiar with, and I will look into. That's interesting. They talked somewhere in here, and I can't find it, which I'm at the end of that suggestion part, but it basically, what did it say? It was quite a good... Oh yeah, so it was talking about a specific adult to steer him when he's having a meltdown, when he's got an issue, so I'm just trying to keep these in order, to have one specific adult that deals with it. And I think that's a big problem that we've had, whereby it's not one adult, it's his TA plus the Senko plus the head plus other people, and he ends up with 4 or 5 people all coming in on him in a dog pile to try and help him through it, or to stop him, or to calm, just to tell him off, or whatever it is. And they've evolved over time, don't get me wrong, they have got a lot better, but it still sounds like so-and-so was there, then so-and-so came in, and then someone else took over, and then this happened, and it's like having one adult that's kind of the one that just gets used to it will help them all, I think. If they can just say, oh, so-and-so, come over here, this is happening, can you take over? And then they just remove themselves from it, I think will help. At home, we tend to just make sure, like if we know it's happening, I'll go ahead sometimes, and like I cleared some space in his room, I put some things away I didn't want him wrecking because I knew it'd upset him, or just because I was sensitive. And then when he moved upstairs, we just left him be, and I kept close but not on him, talked to him, gave him a hug, made sure he was okay, just made sure he knew that we weren't angry or upset. We were just making sure he was okay. And it was quite a trivial one that happened when that happened here. It wasn't anything particularly behaviour related or anything like that. I think he was just upset about something. I can't even remember now. It was, it was only last week. But the point is, that's what's worked for us. I think in the very early days when we just thought it was a tantrum, we were much more likely to go in and talk to him and be on him a bit and try and get him to come out of it. And it just didn't work. So yeah, I'm glad they've got one person and that's what they want to do. They're saying that they think that health should have a minimal impact on him. They're leaving it up to medical professions. I guess this will need to be reviewed slightly when we have an official diagnosis, because it's not really mentioning much. It's just kind of leaving that up to them. It talks about where he's been so far, and this is the key people involved. And just to give you an idea, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 groups, because some of them are bundled together. One of those is me and Claire, and one of those is Oliver, actually. So 9 groups. Sorry, I can even do 11 minus 2 there. 9 groups of people were involved in this, including speech and language clinic, a group called Project for Schools. What is this? The Senko, the psychological advice team, person-centered planning, the lady who did the SEND casework stuff, his teacher, so that's again, but that doesn't include Liaison. I don't think that includes it does include speech and language, the other one, because we had 2 of them. But it's just interesting, the amount of team that have gone into making this, and I haven't sent it to the Senko yet, because it's only been a couple of hours. I need to get Claire's thoughts on it, but she seemed to think it sounded great. It doesn't say, comments I want to make about that, it doesn't say he's going to be assigned X amount of cash for the school. I'm guessing that's between the school and the local authority. I kind of expected that to be written in there. I don't really know why. When I read through it, I thought it doesn't mention that. It doesn't mention anywhere about this significant level. I don't know whether I've misunderstood and whether there is just an EHCP and what they were saying was his need was significant. Everyone seemed to tell me there was 4 levels, but that's not clear in there either. I can't think what else. I don't think there's anything missing, except the fact that it'll evolve when his diagnosis happens fully. Yeah, I think there's little bits that I want to suggest to the school, and I don't think they go in here, but someone might be able to correct me. Things like the whiteboard for calling out and things like that might be worthwhile. It does mention in one of the reports, I think it's this one, it mentions that he should be practicing writing either on a whiteboard, on a computer, in sand. It does make suggestions that I skimmed over in there about ways they could teach him skills that he's lacking, which I like. This is supposed to be with him now until he's 25, I've been told as well. So that's interesting. That will evolve a lot. I'd love to keep track of how it evolves over time. I guess I'll just keep him in my emails and check. But yeah, it's a relief and a half that we're there. Somebody said to Claire this morning, "Oh, good luck for Friday. I've got everything crossed for you." And she said to them, "No, we had it on Friday already," and they were a bit surprised because I didn't realise. I think I mentioned it in WhatsApp in our parenting group because somebody said they were looking to start one, and I was like, "We're just finishing ours next week," so it's nice that they'd remembered. But I think we need to probably have a chat with them about how long it can be. Obviously, if they started now, it wouldn't be till December that they'd get anywhere with it, and that's if they've got all the evidence in place. Maybe we overcooked it with evidence, but I feel like if the Senko's right and it's exactly what they wanted, it's probably worth overcooking it. But I'm relieved, I'm happy, everyone seems happy today. We're still on a good run of, you know, stuff just going well, touch wood, at school. As far as I understand it was a bit noisy in assembly and they just dealt with it, and I didn't get a call, I didn't get a fuss, he didn't. Do you know what I mean? It's little things like that where I'm not expecting him to come back going, well, I didn't even ask him. I think he told me that he'd had to apologise for talking in assembly, which I thought was really sweet that he just told me that. And I was like, that's okay, don't talk in assembly, but thank you for telling me. Yeah, very cool. So all's doing well. I think that's all I've really got. If you've got any questions, let me know, because I can, if I've missed something, I can look through it. If you have any statements to make or points you need me to do or think I should do, any warnings, basically I've got to return to the local authority and say, yep, cool, crack on. So I'd really appreciate any kind of heads up to something that we should ask for. I think we need to specifically say we want him to go to the school he's at. I told Dasenko I'd send it across to her to read through. I don't think there's any harm in me doing that. If you think there is, let me know, but I don't think there is. My gut tells me it should be fine. She then gets to read it, and the school get to read it once we've assigned them as the people. So that's, again, I feel like, I guess if we put the school down the road or the school over that way or whatever, they'd get it instead of his current school. I think that's probably right. And then they would decide whether they could fit him in. But the fact is, we're going with our current school. You know, we can review this whenever we want, but officially I think it gets reviewed every 6 months, they were telling us in the initial phases, at least around here. So, you know, if we get September, October, November and it's just not working, then we'll review it. But I think, reading that, it sounds positive. I'm really hoping we're at the kind of the end stages of this journey now, and we'll just get the diagnosis and then we can get on with living it. Thanks so much for watching. Gonna wrap up. My dog's making noises. I think Claire's just come into the living room to watch TV. So thanks so much for watching this long video. I hope this has been useful. Any questions, let me know, as I say. Any corrections, let me know if you've got them. Yeah, hopefully I'll just be updating saying we've spoke to school, everything's cool, we're cracking on. Obviously, if anything different happens, you'll know soon after we do. So yeah, cheers, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you soon.